Hi, my name is Joan Ranquet. I'm an animal communicator, author, speaker, and founder of Communication with All Life University. And if you're like me, you wouldn't get on the chair either if your dog was sleeping here. So I'll just be doing my Facebook Live from here because I think this is how we roll, right? I mean, I could try to squeeze in, but I don't want to interrupt my beautiful Delilah sleeping. And if you could get closer and hear Queen Latifah purr. All right, so maybe I'll try and get into my spot. Delilah, can we move a little? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So anyway, here I am, and I'm glad you're here because this has been really fun to do, and it's been really wonderful to know that so many people are watching and so many people are on this mission. And just in case you haven't been here before, I'm really going crazy wild with my mission because this is my 10-year anniversary of my school, Communication with All Life University, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate that anniversary than to just really put it out there to people. And this is my 21st year of teaching animal communication and energy healing for animals. So I just want to once again share my mission because maybe you relate to it. My mission is to empower others to deeply connect with all life so that together we can give voice to those who can't speak for themselves and ultimately heal the planet. So I'm starting out this year with just a mere, let's help 1 million animals and their people, and that's going to automatically kind of elevate the frequency, elevate the human population. When we start really going in at a core level and trying to help animals, it just automatically shifts humanity and the planet. So does anyone relate to that at all? I'm just wondering if anyone's even here. Is anyone?
Eleanor says, wow, happy anniversary.
Thank you. So I mean, I think that and here we have a purring Queen Latifah. It's not every day. This is a rare appearance, people. And not only that, but if I had the camera closer, sometimes she purrs so loud, I think that purr machine is going to break. And she's doing it right now. Anyway, so, yesterday I talked a lot about how as an empath, which is what I imagine you are, as an empath, there were a lot of displaced or what other people would consider displaced emotions just because they can't handle the bigness of your feelings. And so for a lot of people, that means squelching it down. For other people, it's often looking like the crazy person and then eventually the crazy cat lady. But for animals, that's always there. They are expressing their feelings. We just don't understand them, or we, don't take it into account. So part of my journey of dealing with those big emotions was getting a degree in theater. So, and while I really loved it, I mean, I actually started acting when I was in high school, and I ended up going to a college where there was a great theater department and a riding department. So I actually rode all the way through college. But because the theater was so intense, I never got to compete with the college team. And up until that point, I had always competed with my horses. So that was kind of the end of that. But I still was down at the barn a lot. It was very cold in the winter. I'll never forget that, in Missouri at Stevens College. But that equestrian department always had me. I mean, like, even if I was not, I'd be doing a play, so I couldn't ride that much. I might ride on like twice a week, but I was down there at that stable a lot. So I went into the theater thinking, this is my life's work, and it was so much fun. And when I look at certain things in my life, things would have a flow. They'd go forward, and then they'd kind of knock off, right? Like they wouldn't quite go forward as much as I would have liked them to. But that said, it was still very fun and fulfilling. But I moved to New York City, and I went to Seattle after I graduated from college, had a theater company. Then I moved to New York City. I went to Circle in the Square, and there was a barn on 86th Street, and I remember walking up to that barn all the time, and the arena was like on the 6th floor. It was crazy. But being a complete horse person that never outgrew it like some people wished I would, I just had to be around them. So I had my sister died, so she was actually diagnosed with a brain tumor. So I moved back to the Seattle area, and I stayed after she died to help my family. But eventually, I let go of my apartment in New York, and I had to make a decision, and so I picked Los Angeles. And I'll never forget, I brought all of my horse stuff with me because I knew I was going to get a horse in Los Angeles. That was just part of the deal. And I remember even as a child, I always thought that like acting and writing, I also wrote screenplays, and I wrote plays, and many of them were published in like a literary magazine or produced. But that was always just the means to an end, and the end was horses. So I think it's actually kind of funny that my life hasn't changed any. But anyway, I went into the theater thinking that was really my life, and it brought me to getting a horse, and then I ended up getting this horse that was the horse that I would say was truly my first understanding of having a soulmate animal. Although if I look back on some of my horses as a child, and a dog and a cat that I had, there were other soulmates all along. But nobody talked about it then. But at this point I was like loud and proud. I have a soulmate horse. And that horse I ended up, and actually I have a little picture of her here. I have many pictures of her, but this is one of my favorite because I never realized, I think it's funny that she's with a crystal ball, because I don't think I ever realized, can I see that? I don't think I ever realized that she would literally be the future of what I would do. So that's why she's with a little crystal ball. She was this amazing being that really helped me learn a lot about myself, because actually having a sister die in the mid-'80s, people just didn't get it, right? And I felt very alone with a lot of my grief and things like that, and she really pulled me out of that. And we had several years where she was just I was learning a lot about spirituality at that point. I was reading things like Thich Nhat Hanh and learning about mindfulness, and I remember that if I was not present, she would always buck, and I called her my mindfulness teacher. So anyway, she's what drove this whole thing, and eventually I bred her, and I ended up with Pony Boy, and I've got a billion pictures of him too. But here he was as a young adult. But the night that she gave birth, she colicked, and so she ended up in ICU. She was very sick for very long, and I eventually lost her, and I ended up with an orphan colt. And so I had used an animal communicator. I had connected deeply, but now I'm living in a stall with an orphan colt. And you want to talk about communication. It was pretty profound. And we had a lot of times where he was also a big teacher for me in this animal communication. So I always think that Communication with All Life University, actually, that these two are the, I'm going to lose that little rolly ball, kind of the founders of Communication with All Life University. If it weren't for them, there goes the marble, the crystal ball, where will it lead us? So if it weren't for those two horses, we wouldn't be here in this whole world. And I had I have so many stories about that. But eventually, this whole thing, I got very interested in that era. I had used animal communication. I had taken a lot of intuition classes, and in the early 90s, it just flipped for me. And so it really became much more, even though I was still an actor and a writer, And I had a lot of projects that I did. I produced some stuff. I had a lot of projects going, and but my world was out at the barn every day. My world was in these intuition classes. My world was going to different energy healing classes, and not off at some master class for acting. And so, again, like I said yesterday, the life of an artist often is an opportunity to express these things, but it is also kind of the gateway to being a healer. Can anyone relate to that? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes. Sorry, here it is. So there's a couple of people that have commented. Carol Kurtz says that as an empath, I get completely traumatized by stories of animal abuse and the food industry abuse of animals, so that it makes it almost too scary to listen to animals. But I want to hear and help them so much. Any suggestions for this?
Yeah, actually, yes, I have a whole bunch of suggestions for this, and I'll get to that in a second.
Candace replied yes, absolutely to your question.
Yeah.
And then
well, who's the woman that said that? Lori Kurtz? Is that
Carol Kurtz Darlington?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that, and I'll hold that thought bubble here.
So a couple of people also said hello.
Hello. Yeah, go ahead.
Vivian Celio says, yes, I too come from a theater background, so you're really speaking to me right now.
Well, I love that. Yeah. And it's funny because there's something about the theater and animal people that is the same. And I would have never put this together, but I was down at my college, Stevens College, where I teach animal communication and EFT to the equestrian department. And the woman that was head of, I don't know, alumni something, and she was a theater major behind me a couple of years, and she said, there's one thing about horse people and animal people, and she's a dog person, that's so like the theater. And I said, what's that? She's like, they're so willing to roll their sleeves up and just go do that thing. And it's so true, So I think there's something very cool about that link of big-hearted, let's go adventure seekers. But anyway, my life went a different direction in that this thing, and earlier I said that, my life was moving at a pace, and then it would drop, and then it would move at a pace and it would drop, and then it would move at a pace and then it would drop, and it would move at a pace and it would drop. It didn't have the free flow until I really made a commitment to doing this work. And I didn't even realize what a commitment I'd made. I had a project that I used to, as a screenwriter, I always say I was always a bridesmaid and never a bride. I had like 4 projects optioned, but they never went into production. And they'd be optioned with big deal producers. So I had this project that was going to get going, and the day, and again, I'm out there talking to animals, but I'm also doing this thing, this screenwriting thing. And I got news that the funding fell through 3 weeks before we were going to go into production, which meant the actors, everybody was released. I was crushed. I was crestfallen. I didn't know what I was going to do. And literally the very next day, I'd been interviewed by someone, and I completely forgot that I'd been interviewed by them. But the very next day, this article came out in the LA Times, and there's me and Pony Boy. And anyway, it was pretty fun. The article read, "Is Fluffy fussy? Does Rover refuse to roll over?" Again, this is in the 90s, right? "Joan may be able to tell you why. She says she has a psychic ability to read horses, dogs, and cats, and a newly opened West Hollywood practice that specializes in pet owner relationships and coping with lost or dying animals." And then it goes on. But the funny thing is that my phone machine was on low, and so I'm jumping rope, I'm doing my thing, my early morning 6 a.m., meditating. I never do this. I went down the street at 7:30 to get the newspaper, and I found this article, and I about fell down on the street. And so I bought a bunch of copies, and I came home, and I thought, well, that's weird. My phone, nobody's called me. My phone number's right there, 323-656-7743. It's right there. And then I looked down at my phone machine, which had the ringer mysteriously was turned off, and there were 64 messages, and it wasn't even 8 a.m. That is how this has gone for me. And, so when I stepped into this, there's been a trajectory that I cannot even tell you. And it just keeps getting better and better and better and better and better and better. And it's driven by forces that I'm out of control in this, in that it's going. And I feel like there are some of you out there that can relate to this. Yes?
Yes. A couple of people are liking, and Yasmin says, this is powerful stuff. It is. And Eleanor is laughing, saying, Eleanor Narayani Cohen said, LOL, you didn't even know that this was happening, and it was happening behind the scenes, basically. So
totally behind the scenes. I mean, and that's where I always say that, you can get a knock from the universe, you can get hit by the universe. I needed an anvil, right? Like a crushing anvil in the name of Pony Boy, right? I mean, it wasn't a wake-up call. It was a wake-up, get tossed across the universe and wake up, people. So, and I think there's a lot of you out there that, first of all, I think if you look at your life, you've been a big empath, and then you look at the idea that you want to do something with this. I think it's important to look at, am I moving forward and getting stopped, moving forward and getting stopped, moving forward and getting stopped? Or when you're in the right place at the right time, do you feel a flow? And like I said, every time I turn around, I mean, all of a sudden this article came out. I was invited to the Kentucky Derby, and MSNBC had a sports department back then in the 90s, and they did a story on it. They followed me as I talked to each horse. There were, and I don't love the racing industry now, but I mean, that was a big deal back then. Racehorses still deserve to be heard, even if they're, even if we don't like the industry. So there's, I ended up on Good Morning America. So my Showbiz act background kind of paid off, because I don't mind sitting here in front of a camera and telling you this story, right? And that could be true for you if that's something, there could be something that you do in your life and combine it with this, that it's going to have a natural flow, which is why, yeah.
Selena Brown says that my first pony came to me at age 5. We were together for 29 years. She was my soul. I continued my life with a career in horses. I recently had to end this career and have felt lost ever since. I know it was the connection they gave me, keeping me grounded. People have told me I speak their language without words. This is why I'm present, now listening.
I love that. It's giving Claudia the chills. I can see that Claudia's like, whoa! Because this is the thing. You know what we did before? I think that Claudia told me this morning that this is really funny. Claudia told me this morning that she was trying to explain to her husband that there are this many people out here that want to do this. And so I got on the phone and I said, Siri, what is 1% of 7 billion people? And it's 70 million. So if only 1% of the planet wanted this kind of a connection with animals, that's 70 million people. So we've got work to do, which will bring me around to that Carol's question in a minute. But that's the thing. It's like, if it's only 1% that wants to sit near their sleeping cat or carry their bunny or, ride a horse, that is a lot of people. And, and if only a small part of it wants to do this as a living, that's still a lot of people. And I want the 70 million. I mean, I'm just this year I'm starting with 1 million, but next year I'll probably up the game to 69 million people to reach, because this is huge. If it's 70 million people that want a deeper connection with their animal, we've got to find them, and I can't do this alone, and that's why I'm doing this masterclass. So anyway, I I'm doing this masterclass for free for the first time ever here, because I feel like I've got to, my goal is 1 million, but now that I know there's 70 million, there's a lot of work to do, and I cannot do this alone, right? So anyway, I don't think that, and not everybody's going to do this for a living. Some people that have gone through my program actually are doing it because they want to help animals in shelters, because they want to help animals for hospice, and, but I do have people that have graduated that actually are making money in those areas also. So, it's just, it depends on you, I think. But, if you're feeling like okay, here's something that Claudia will also attest to, and we might have to get her face on here to go, yes. No, not today, I know. But be prepared. You might, if you need to feel comfortable with makeup tomorrow or the next day, because you're going to have to get on here. But my point is, if you felt out of control emotionally at a period in your life, and then you have these big feelings with animals, one of the biggest thing my program teaches is boundaries. Would you say yes to that?
100%.
Yeah. And so I'll talk about that in a second. But I just want to remind you that we do have this masterclass next week, and to please, I think the information to join the private Facebook group is in the title. So, please, by all means, join us, because we're going to go deep. But yes?
So Selena Brown, I commented and thanked her for her post. She said, "My heart is racing with fear from sharing the story of," and then ties into what Eleanor Cohen is saying. How do you find the confidence and faith knowing all will work out for your highest good if you follow the thing you want to do the most and make it your mission in life?
I haven't felt like I've had a choice, right? Like that. Once I walked through that door, it's like a million doors open every day. Like I just went and taught in China. I taught at Edgar Casey. I mean, every time I turn around, someone called me this morning. It's like, yep, it's a go for Houston, right? Like every day I get a new opportunity, a new invitation. I'm going to England to teach this May. It's like it is endless what ends up happening.
Kat BM posted that having just taken a course on animal communication recently, Joan, you're so inspiring. I read your book, which put me on the path in the first place. I'm so excited to where I'm heading. I already practice with my pack of dogs and friends' pets.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, for some people, it's so funny because some people come into my big program after. There's a woman that just joined, and I'm outing you, Lisa, if you happen to listen to this. She took the home study course like 3 years ago. So there are people that, it's going back to Eleanor's question. It's really making that commitment, and I feel like it's your soul's commitment. And when you make that commitment, it's out of your control in terms of your soul is in someone else's hands for the greater good. And when you commit like that, I'm not saying it's not hard, and this will bring me back around to Carol's comment. It's hard because there are choices I've had to make that, like, okay, just about my lifestyle in terms of I'm really driven, I'm going to have a lot of animals, some cute guy's going to have to be really understanding of that, right? Like, there's certain choices we make in our life to do this, and I'm not saying you have to give up things, but while there are choices and it's not easy, it's so driven by the divine that there's no denying that. How about that? There's no denying that. So when you step into that power and purpose and soul's calling, it's the greatest thing on the planet. But I want to go back to, I want to make sure, okay, now my dog is going to eat. Yeah, okay. And I know that many of you resonate with this. I know that many of you want to do this sort of thing, and I want to make sure that going back to the fear, that you understand that, like, I think when you step out of that fear, or you can be afraid and you can acknowledge it, and it's still it is still empowering. It's empowering to even say, to share, like the gal just did, about being afraid to share that, because it's important. But I want to go back to Carol's comment about factory farming and what did
food industry,
the food industry,
animal cruelty,
and animal cruelty. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's a mess. I mean, whether it's humans, Syria, animal stuff, the factory farming, all of it, right? Like, it's a mess. And I go back to asking Siri this morning, what is 1% of 7 billion? And it's 70 million people. So if we could get a chain going of 70 million people really being in their heart and connecting with the idea that this is what they want to do or be, maybe it isn't what they want to do for a living, but maybe this is who they want to be on the planet, we're going to raise a frequency like nothing else. First. Secondly, not every single thing you're going to do is going to bring you back to that pain. If you are helping one dog or one cat have a better life, you're helping their humans, you're helping that household, you're raising the frequency 1 to 5 animals at a time, and that includes people. So I had a period where I couldn't walk in the grocery store because the whole thing is lined with dead animals. There's nothing I loved more than a good shop at Nordstrom, and I can't walk in the first floor anymore because it's full of purses and shoes. It's full of leather. So I mean, there are times I just have to tunnel vision it down. I'm almost completely leather free in my house. There's some vegan saddles coming out that I can't wait to purchase. I look at what is here, what is starting to happen. And if we all, 70 million of us, get together, we're going to exponentially, like, poof, wow, all of a sudden everything's vegan, or wow, we are on a mission. So when you put that mission first, your stuff can go out of the way. And for me, I put that mission first. That mission is first. And so if I walk by a truck full of chickens that I know are going, I know that I'm doing so many things to help. I take people on eco tours. I take people because I hate poaching and so I look at all of the things that I can't stand, and I try to do one thing every day or every week to mitigate that thing. Like, I help a lot with, I just did an animal communication class for the Gentle Barn, and we're going to have Ellie on here at some point. I've already talked to her about coming by. So, I do something every day or every week. I look around, what do I just think is horrible, that just is terrible? And then I try to do one thing to help change that, to create a movement, right? Like, I don't like trophy hunting. Blech. Who does? I can't change those guys right now, but what I can do is organize a bunch of you to go to the White Lions in November, to go to Sumatra in August. So I always have something that I'm looking forward to that's part of the big mission, that is takes my feelings out of it. Takes my feeling about a situation becomes selfish if I'm not thinking of the big mission. Does that make sense? Did that make sense, Claudia?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a luxury to feel badly about those things. I don't have time. I gotta get moving. I've got to keep moving every day. So I don't put myself in a situation. I have boundaries for myself. I don't put myself in a situation where I'm always hearing that pain. I will hear it, and I will hold space for it, and I want to roll my sleeves up and help. And you 70 million don't have to all do it that way, but we've got to get the 70 million together. Starting with just 1 million this year.
Eleanor just said, being afraid and feeling empowered.
Yeah, being afraid and feeling empowered and moving forward. Yeah.
So Carol just responded and she said, your answer is so helpful to me. Putting the mission first, one dog at a time. I can do something every day. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, now I'm going to start crying. That's awesome.
And then
Okay, seriously.
Michelle commented on that as well. That's a great way of looking at it, as it's about perspective and can feel overwhelming. Thank you. And Eleanor is saying, doing one small thing every day makes it seem so achievable. And I'm going to start crying
I'm going to
too.
start crying.
So.
All right. You know what? It's sort of like as a kid, my father was like, we're, going to have problems with water, like we have problems with oil. And, why are you driving so much when we've got this war on oil and we've got to recycle and pick up more garbage? So I had an earth consciousness in my household. And so there are times in the 80s I could feel overwhelmed, like I'm recycling and nobody else is. But I was participating in the energetics of recycling, which meant that on a larger scale, I was participating in something that was helping the planet. And so that's how we have to view this. Like everything, we're in this bigger thing than us. And when we do one dog at a time, one thing at a time, we're almost putting into the savings account of what we want the planet to be like. And when we think of that, we can't get defeated. Okay, I think I'm done. All right. Wow, who knew? So I just wanted to mention a few things. I've got a masterclass next week, and so the Facebook link is in the, it's somewhere on there.
The title.
In the title. Yeah, I knew that. I'm just really overwhelmed. And so the Facebook link is in the title. If you can't go to the class, the recordings will be there. So I want everybody, to join. And also, if you have friends that you think would like this, please share and please invite them. And I'm just really grateful because now that I know there's 70 million, I'm going to have to up my goal of it's not just 1 million anymore. It's 7. We'll start with 1 million this year. And then together, next year, we're going for 69 million because we'll have hit 1 million. But we're going to help 1 million animals and they're humans. And we're going to empower people to connect on a deeper level. Thank you.